A Prince Freddie sleep story. The secret library under the sand. The dune had been there for as long as Prince Freddie could remember. It was the old one, up past the high tide line. The beach grass grew in thick clumps there. The sand had hardened to something almost like ground. He had passed it on his morning patrol so many times he had stopped noticing it. This morning, he stepped onto it, and it was not there. Not entirely. The outer crust held for one step. Then the ground made a decision. Freddie went with it. He slid in a long, smooth descent. The sand parted around him like water. His short legs pedalled briefly and uselessly against nothing. His crown tilted, and then tilted further, until he stopped. He sat up. His crown was sideways. He adjusted it. He was in a room. The ceiling was arched. The walls were sand-packed firm. The floor was smooth, dark stone. Shelves ran floor to ceiling. On them were objects. There were bottles and jars and small chests. There were carefully folded nets and things wrapped in oilcloth. Some things were too large to wrap, and others too small to see clearly from where he was sitting. Every object had a small card beside it. Each card was hand-lettered. In the center of the room, behind a table that appeared to be made from a single piece of driftwood, sat Francisco. Freddie had heard of Francisco the octopus for some time. He came from conversations on the beach and a passing mention at the harbour. Freddie had the impression of someone important, in the way that librarians are important. Francisco was essential, largely invisible, deeply engaged with something that most people did not think about. He was the colour of warm sandstone. He had 8 arms. Each arm was doing something different. All of it was useful. One held a magnifying glass. One made a note. One reshelved a bottle. One adjusted his glasses. He should not technically have needed them, but wore them anyway. He sat behind his table with the air of someone interrupted while very busy. He was deciding how to feel about it. "You came through the ceiling," Francisco said. "I did," Freddie agreed. "I apologize." "The dune needed maintenance," Francisco said, and made a note of something. "It has needed it for 3 years. You are not the first thing to come through, but you are the largest in recent memory." Freddie looked around the room. "What is this place?" "Everything the sea has ever brought to this shore," Francisco said. Or its record. Some objects are here. For others, we hold the catalogue entry only. We have been collecting since the shore was this shore. That is a considerable time. He rose from behind the table. He gestured at the shelves. Would you like to see? Freddie followed him along the first wall. The cards were written in several languages and several hands. This meant the collection had been catalogued by different keepers. Francisco had inherited something already vast. He pointed out objects without stopping. A blue bottle from a northern country. It was sealed with red wax. A fishing float in orange glass from before the blown glass era. A carved wooden horse no longer than Freddie's paw. It was painted red. The paint was worn to nothing on one side. A chart, folded many times, of a coast that had since shifted entirely. A boot. We have extensive boots, Francisco said. The sea is very consistent about boots. They turned a corner Freddie had not noticed was there. He stopped. On a shelf at eye level stood a small velvet stand. It held no pearl, only a hand-lettered card, the way the library keeps the record of a thing the sea has carried home. The card read, Pearl of Granada. Carried ashore, traded back to the sea by a collector for a gift of shells. Now in the underwater castle, where the fish dream of it still. Provenance, see cross-reference, P, seagull. Pedro, Freddie said. His tail gave a slow sway. He had been there the night it happened. The nest of bottle caps and silver foil sat by the lighthouse. Captain Coral had gathered fine shells in exchange, spirals of purple and fans of pink. Pedro had turned them over and looked very pleased, certain he had the better end of it. You know each other, Francisco said, without surprise. Since the night he traded it back, Freddie said. He liked the shells better. So did the fish. So the record says, Francisco said. A fair exchange. It is noted with the cross-reference. Freddie looked at the empty stand a moment, glad the pearl was back where it was needed. Further along, on a lower shelf, was a glass bottle with a cork containing a rolled piece of paper. The card read, Message, Origin unknown. Contents, 1 page. Language, Portuguese, archaic form. Approximate age, see notes. Condition, preserved. Someone will claim it, Francisco said, or they won't. Either way, it is kept. Freddie recognized the message bottle on the lower shelf. They came back to the table. Freddie sat down on the stone floor. It was cool and pleasant after the warmth of the beach above. "How do I get out?" he said. "There is a passage," Francisco said. He pointed to an archway at the far end of the room. Freddie had taken it for another shelf arrangement. "It comes out above the tide line, behind the marram grass. Mind the last step. It is taller than you." "Gracias," Freddie said. "The dune will reseal in a few days," Francisco said. He sat back behind his table. "Come through the passage next time if you want to visit. I can show you the cartography section. We have some extraordinary things." Freddie went through the archway. The passage was cool. It smelled of deep stone and the particular clean, dry smell of old paper. It went up at a steady angle for longer than he expected. The last step was indeed tall. He came out into the late afternoon. He had a small amount of sand in his ear and a very full head. The beach was going gold. The air above the tide line had that warm softness. It was sweet and unhurried. The day was exhaling. Freddie stood in it for a moment, with his eyes half closed. He walked home as the beach went gold. His human was in the garden when he arrived. They were doing something peaceful with the tomato plants. They looked up. They appeared to notice he had a great deal of sand in various places. They decided not to ask. Freddie ate his supper with the appetite of someone underground longer than expected. He went to the bed. He circled once, twice, 3 times. He moved slow and deliberate. Then he lay down flat on his back. He did this sometimes. His paws were up. His belly faced the ceiling. It was cooler than the rest of him. Within a few breaths, he was warm. Below the dune, in the room, Francisco made a note. His handwriting was careful. It read, "1 corgi. Crown. Patron status confirmed." Then he went back to work. 3 arms catalogued. The 4th cleaned his glasses. The 5th held his place in a book. He had been reading between tasks. The end. Sleep well, Prince Freddie. Below the sand, Francisco is still reading. 3 arms cataloguing. The lamp burning low.